Clubhouse Media Group is a content hub, talent management agency, and digital studio, and also a talent investment fund. And with me is the president, Chris Young. Chris, great to have you.
Hi, good to meet you, and good to be on.
Tell me a little bit the genesis of the business. Like, how did you come up with it? How did it start? What brought you to where you are today?
The business was started approximately 18 months ago. At the time, I was a talent manager for a prominent influencer named Daisy Keach. And she had started a content house, a lifestyle content house. And content houses have been around for quite a while. The first ones were all usually gaming houses. This one happened to be a very popular one that she co-founded called the Hype House. It made a New York Times, I believe, a headline article. And the thesis behind it was if you get a bunch of influencers together and you let them collaborate with each other, the physical space really facilitated new ideas, businesses, and that's sort of the genesis of how we got to where we are now. So after Daisy Keach co-founded the Hype House, her and I were approached by a private investor who asked if we wanted to maybe go and expand and scale it out further. So that was sort of the genesis. We obviously went ahead and did that and started the Clubhouse Media Group and Clubhouse BH, which was our first content house separate outside of the Hype House.
So you've talked a little bit about you and Daisy. Is she also an executive with the company?
She is a shareholder of the company. Okay. She is not an executive with the company anymore. She has moved on to develop her own separate company since then. She was with us for around 7 or 8 months, but is one of the co-founders of the Clubhouse Media Group.
So talk a little bit about then the executives and the role that they play in the company.
Yeah, certainly. So my background personally is previously as an entertainment lawyer, as a talent agent, and I have also been a multi-time, e-commerce and fashion e-commerce operator. And I have built multiple companies that have all had one thing in common, which is that I've worked with influencers over the last maybe 12 years or so. And so that goes back to this genesis. I noticed that there was this trend over the last 10, 12 years that influencers were becoming more and more important and popular for marketing and for many purposes. And so I was always in this field in one way or another. I moved to the other side of the table after I sold my last e-commerce company and worked in venture capital as an entrepreneur in residence at Lamppost Group, and then as an advisor at a fund called Amplify. So this is something that I've personally been involved in many ways in one form or another with influencers. We have, on top of that, a lot of other executives that really work to help bring this cohesive, narrative and company. And that is, I'll start off with Simon Yu, who is our Chief Operations Officer. And he has a lot of public markets experience, and that's why we're publicly traded. So he handles a lot of the compliance and the operations and assists with the fundraising and the mergers and acquisitions work that we do. We also have Harris Tolchin, and these are all co-founders, by the way. Harris is our chief legal officer. He also happens to have over 30 years of experience as an entertainment lawyer and producer. And because we produce a lot of media, he's been very beneficial in providing contacts and introductions and sort of the know-how as we move into the new media space. This is essentially, influencers are almost like a new celebrity, right? And they're creating content and media that is not too far off from traditional media, movies and TV shows and other types of things like that. We have Amir Ben Yohanan, who is the CEO and one of our majority majority stakeholders. He was our initial investor in the company. His background is in real estate. And because we have physical spaces, so he lends a hand in helping us to work on that part of the business. And then we have one of our other board members currently. His name is Gary Morenzi, former president of International Pictures from Paramount. And so, of course, a lot of media experience. Going beyond that, we have other members of our team that are very important. Victoria Daniel, who is a talent agent who manages quite a large roster of traditional celebrities and influencers. And then we have Arlene Guzman, who is our chief of staff, who is also well-versed in essentially venture capital fundraising and in investment, investment theses. So because we are sort of an investment group in that sense, all those play a part together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally.
Sorry for the very long answer and introduction there.
No, I mean, what an interesting group of people and backgrounds. And I mean, it sounds like you're all kind of filling each other's needs to help grow this company. So what are some of the benchmarks that you have for Clubhouse Media? Yeah, so some of our key benchmarks really are, number one is we're here to try to help develop talent, new media talent. And those are influencers, as people call them, or content creators. And so our benchmarks are hit when we are able to invest in them and build successful businesses around them and help them become more marketable so that they can bring in more brand deals. So the benchmarks are, we obviously have revenue benchmarks that we try to hit. We have benchmarks in the sense of that we try to develop and bring in and associate ourselves with relevant talent that has a long lifetime value that we can work with and build businesses around. So those are two really large key, things that we try to do. So I'm so interested in the influencer part of it. So what kind of trends, what works in this area? How are younger people consuming this media and being influenced by the influencers than what we may have seen from media in the past? Yes. So, one could argue that the quote unquote influencer has been around for a long time. Paris Hilton could be considered probably one of the first influencers. And then you have traditional influencers that everyone knows about, like a Kardashian, right, is an influencer. Now, then we have our social media influencers who don't tend to be on as much of the traditional, they don't have a TV show per se, although some of them do have TV shows. But to answer your question, I guess, they're important because it's an industry that companies have realized they need to invest in when they're putting together their marketing budgets. They tend to work really well to help companies launch new products and services. And they are moving a lot of the marketing budgets away from traditional media buys and advertisements. And I think the movement has really been towards influencers becoming more and more relevant to the general public, because people seem to, I think, feel a little bit more relatable to them, even though, some of them, they might live what seems to be a fancy lifestyle or an aspirational one, but they're much closer than even a traditional celebrity. It's easier to look at someone that maybe even has, 5 million followers on Instagram, for example, and say, hey, I associate with that person a little bit more than I do with, Tom Cruise or, Emily Blunt. So, yeah. Well, it's interesting. I have a 12 and a 14-year-old. And so I watch, it's mainly TikTok, is who they see, and they will follow people that I have never heard of, but it's a totally different way of consuming media and marketing, as you mentioned. So it's very interesting to watch. So, I guess, you're bullish on this, and you think that these younger kids that are consuming media this way will continue to do so. And I imagine the industry will just get more mature and developed as we go on.
Absolutely, and I would even venture to say that it's not relegated to just a young group. The audience is all over. If you look at the demographics of the people that follow our influencers that we manage and work with, they range from from the very young side, 12, 14, all the way up to 50, 60, and that. Delta that you see is all over. I mean, it's not necessarily just young people that use social media. Social media influencers, people might not think of it right off the top of the head. They could be, for example, a mother who is on social media, who teaches other mothers who follow her how she handles a family of 5 while having a full-time job, and could have a large following on YouTube or on Instagram. So I think social media influencer is it's a large word. It encompasses a lot of different types of people. And so, yes, definitely bullish. I like to say that if you sort of open up your mind and think about it, it's more than just young TikTokers or just, what instantly comes to your head when you think social media influencer.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a market that's been growing. Like I said, I've been in this industry for, over 12 years or so in one way or another, whether I was employing influencers to help market my companies or whether I was managing them or working with them. And I've actually even been in a travel influencer myself a little bit. I amassed a following of almost 500,000 across YouTube and Instagram and was being paid by hotel groups. So I've actually even experienced myself on that side of the business. So, and if you look at the metrics, it is growing tremendously. Every year, I remember when, 10 years ago, people said this was going to be a fad. Influencer marketing was not going to stick around, but it has grown year over year and has turned into a industry that is, I believe somewhere around 20 to 25 billion in marketing spend, and that is continuing to grow significantly year over year.
No, I mean, when you think about it, like I do watch YouTube travel videos.
Yeah.
Subscribe to some of them. And, and I think even
you should subscribe to mine.
I haven't come across yours yet. I'm surprised it hasn't, the algorithm hasn't sent me there, but it probably will.
The young travelier.
Okay. I will look it up. But I think there's some political influencers too. I think there's people who made their names for themselves in different political areas on social media that we may not have, and they're actually affecting policy as well. So thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So what kind of key areas then are you looking where the industry will see growth, do you think?
I think the growth in industry is really in micro and nano influencers is what we call them. And those are the smaller ones with smaller followings. They tend to have a larger reach and engagement in the sense of it's a little bit more authentic. Someone that maybe only has 5,000 followers or 10,000 followers tends to be, someone that those followers, those 5 or 10,000, they probably know a good fifth of them in person. They probably know these people, and so there's a little bit more authenticity with the smaller influencers. So I see that as one of the trends is micro and nano influencers, and because people can do this almost as a side gig. We have this new gig economy. So you're seeing a trend of influencers that are making just extra money on the side. They're a little bit smaller. They're not doing it full time. I see that as a growing trend, and it's been growing for years. I also see that the influencer is quickly becoming the new celebrity. And is really taking on mainstream media and old school celebrity. You have large names like Addison Rae, you have large names like the Charlie or Dixie D'Amelios, which over the last year have gone and come into the household and in the kitchen, and people are talking about these people that started off on social media on TikTok, right? So I think the trend is that it's becoming more and more mainstream, where you can mention, at a dinner conversation, and people say, "Oh yeah, I know that person," as in the same breath as talking about, like I said earlier, Tom Cruise or George Clooney or Emma Watson or someone like that, right?
Yeah. No, I know Charlie D'Amelio. I have a 12-year-old daughter, so I
There you go. Yeah.
her.
So I'm sure you've heard that
And I
name
think
many
she did a
times.
TV show where there's some crossover and stuff in the media too. So
Yeah.
really interesting industry. Chris, thanks so much for coming and sharing that. And I look forward to getting some updates as this industry is constantly evolving, it seems like.
Yeah, definitely.